Around July last year, this guy caught my interest. Of course, it is the XIAOMI Mi drone, and you will notice I'm saying XIAOMI slightly differently than I have done in the past, and that is because I have looked it up on Wikipedia how to pronounce it. And it wasn't just me that became interested by this piece of technology either. You see, in the RC hobby, when you say XIAOMI or Xiaomi, you instantly relate it to the Xiaomi Yi camera. Now, I say this often, but the Yi camera revolutionized the hobby by bringing affordable GoPro quality footage to our mini quads and aerial photography setups, not by reinventing the wheel, but by making the wheel much more cheaper to buy in a similar sort of package. The thing is though, I've since learned that Xiaomi was only a partner when it came to the making of the Yi cam. In fact, it is Yi Technologies that makes the Yi cam, and of course their new range of cameras as well, and I believe they are trying to step away from the Xiaomi brand whenever they can, with Xiaomi just being the shop that they sell them in. So therefore the Xiaomi Mi drone does not have the same gene pool as the Yi camera. So is that a problem? Well, I refer back to my original statement in that if the Yi camera can imitate a GoPro, can the Mi drone imitate a DJI? And I think that is the thought train of anyone interested in this product. So the fact that Yi has come up with their own drone entitled the e-reader kind of puts a stop to any comparison between the Yi success and the Mi drone's mission to compete with DJI. Furthermore, the Mi drone isn't new. As I mentioned, it's a bit last year, and when it came out it was a bit hit and miss. Now, I applaud anyone trying to take on DJI. I have always been a supporter of the underdog, but when the Mi was released to English-speaking countries, it came as a bit of a shock to those who received one, having only a Chinese manual and a Chinese-only app, which was not available on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, but downloaded from a website. It also had a beginner mode that you had to unlock by flying for over 300 minutes. It sounds like a sensible idea, but in practice, rather quite annoying. So a bit of a fail for us, I think you might say. But I'm told that those initial models were actually test models, and the one that I have is the mass production model with an English app available on the Play Store and the Apple Store. It's had the beginner mode taken away and all of the bugs fixed. So, is it ready? Well, let's see. On face value, the only thing that has changed when it comes to the packaging is the fact that the 3-axis gimbal and camera now come in the same box. Originally, I believe you used to get 2 boxes, one for the quadcopter and one for the camera. Other than that, everything else looks the same. We have the quadcopter itself with its foldable locking landing legs. This does allow the quadcopter to be stored in a much smaller box than the DJI. Be careful unfolding the legs though. They house the antennas for the control, and once down they lock into place with 2 clips at the side of the aircraft. Don't try to yank them once they are locked in place like I did. The gimbal locks in place underneath using this simple but effective mechanism. This is the 1080p version, which offers 60 FPS and 30 FPS. You have to provide your own micro SD card for this one, and it records 17 megabit at 30 frames per second, but only 20 megabit at 60 frames per second, which is fairly low. However, 17 megabit for 30 frames per second is quite respectable, but I'm in it for the 60 FPS as well, so I will be checking both out. The proprietary DJI style battery slots in the back. It's a 17.4 volt, 5100 milliamp, 450 gram battery, which according to the translated manual will get you a 27-minute flight time, so we are probably looking at more like a 20-minute flight time. And as far as I could tell, the battery does show you its power indication via a short press of the button, but it's not a smart battery in that you can set it to discharge on its own, as far as I'm aware. A lot of people will be looking at the Mi drone and will be thinking, okay, is there any reason to get this over the Phantom 3 standard? Well, on paper, I would say yes, because it's got ultrasonic sensors underneath, as well as an optical camera, which is something DJI brought in on their higher models. So we should get a really stable hover with the Mi drone. Its camera is also detachable, which means that in theory you can upgrade the camera in the future to their 4K model if you wish to. At the moment, the Mi drone does sit at a cheaper price than the P3, however prices seem to fluctuate on a daily basis, so check out the links in the description for more information on that. The Mi drone is using DJI style 2212 motors along with auto-locking propellers that are clearly marked by colour to ensure that they always go on the correct way, not that you can put them on the incorrect way anyway. Also in the box is the controller, which I will talk about in more detail later. You are also given a spare set of props. Some prop protectors which I will not be using, as well as a spanner set, screwdriver and screws for the prop guards. You are given the battery charger and also a USB micro B lead for your phone. For me, the charger requires a European adapter, which is not a big deal. The charger is quite unusual though, in that it can plug into either side of the battery. It does take around 3 hours to charge, so it's not as fast as a DJI battery, which usually takes about an hour. The controller is pretty neat. Again, it's very DJI-esque, having the two foldable antennas and also its looks. The controller feels very premium with multiple instances of soft touch material that grip the hands well. The controller has a built-in battery like the Phantom, and we have some very nice feeling gimbal sticks as well, which are both spring-loaded to cater for its altitude hold. Underneath we have a pull-out compartment where we can find the micro USB port for charging the transmitter, and then the normal sized USB port which connects to your phone to relay the video back to you. Then at the top is this pull-out phone holder, which is a really nice design, but it won't hold a tablet. So if you want to use a tablet with this controller, you will need to buy an adapter to fit the lanyard clip found here between the sticks. Above that we have the return to home switch, then underneath there is the power button, which copies the DJI system of a double press and a hold to switch it on, and then some light indicators showing the battery strength on the transmitter. At the side of that button is the takeoff and landing button, and it's activated again by 2 presses and a hold. Then on the edge of the transmitter we have 2 sliders. The one on the left is for pitching the gimbal up and down, and the one on the right dims the front lights of the quadcopter, as well as turning on and off GPS modes when ATI mode is selected supposedly. We then have 2 buttons underneath marked A and B. The B button is recessed if you need to remember that function, so button B starts and stops video recording and button A takes a photo. Next, I will move on to the application. As mentioned, it's available on the Play Store and Apple Store. Just search for Mi Drone. You might notice that I'm using my old Nexus 5 phone here, and that is because either Android 7 or the USB-C port on my Pixel phone is causing the Mi app to crash. But my old Nexus 5 phone is working perfectly, and this is something that the Mi Drone has over the DJI Go app right away, because I have not experienced a single crash on Android since switching to my Nexus 5, whereas I've not had a single flight with the DJI Go app without it crashing halfway through the flight. As far as I can tell, the official app has fixed pretty much all of the bugs first reported with this one. You are first prompted with a screen to create a XIAOMI account, which you then have to go and activate through email, but this didn't take too long. I'm then prompted with another screen advising to turn on the aircraft and transmitter and also connect the phone via the USB cable to the transmitter. When you press next, you are then asked to turn on USB tethering, where it will direct you to the correct menu in your phone to do so. This isn't hotspot tethering, so it will not get you in trouble with your service provider. This phone doesn't have a data connection at all, and it still lets me fly the Me drone. You need to press the back button once the tethering option has been set. It then checks the hardware, and now it's prompting me to update the firmware. I was a little bit nervous of this because in the past I have heard cases of bricking and also losing the ability to tether once upgraded. However, it seems like all of those bugs have been fixed because the firmware updated with no issues in about 4 minutes. That being said, every time I boot the app up, it tells me that I need to upgrade the firmware, but I have checked and this is the latest firmware, so that is definitely a bug. Luckily, I can select later and move on to the main screen. Every time the app connects to the quad, it tells me that I need to calibrate the compass, which is not a bad thing. This time the compass calibration is working, unlike previous versions of the app, but it did fail on a couple of times, but I just recalibrated it and it told me it was a success. Similar to the DJI model, you are directed to spin the quadcopter horizontally a few times and then vertically, but for now I will exit out of there. Here we have the main screen, which is set up to map view by default. You just need to hit the camera icon to see what the gimbal is seeing. Then we have some info on the screen. Starting off at the top left, we have the quad's altitude in meters. The height is limited to 120 meters, and that is indicated by the grey bar at the side to show you how much more height you have to go until that limit has been reached. Then at the bottom left is the distance from the pilot. Then along the bottom is horizontal speed, vertical speed, the RC signal strength, and I have no idea what graph means, but it's always reading strong, so I guess that is good, right? To the right we have the number of GPS satellites, and again the bar to the side of that which indicates the GPS strength. And then above that is the battery percentage, which is also shown by a bar at the side for quick reference. You can select at the top here to remove the on-screen display if you wish, leaving only the video feed. Then at the top is the quad's status indicator, showing whether it's ready to fly or not. Now, there's a lot of buttons and features with this app, so you will have to bear with me. At the bottom here, we can access the micro SD card of the quad, where you can stream videos. However, I just tend to connect the micro SD card direct to the computer as it's quicker, and that's where I'm editing my footage. Then in the middle, we have this button to stop and start video recording, or you can slide it down into photo mode and then it becomes a shutter button. Then at the top is where all of our settings are. You can calibrate the compass from here or check out the beginner guide. Then from here I can turn beginner mode off, which is something that you couldn't do with the first models. Beginner mode restricts you to 50 meters in height and 100 meters in distance, so I'm going to want that turned off for me personally. Then underneath there is an option called GPS mode settings. These didn't seem to do anything other than being able to change the return to home altitude. The other settings seem to reset every time I leave the menu, so a little bit of a bug there. VPU mode turns on the sensors underneath for indoor flight. It gives you various warnings as you enter that mode to say you need a certain amount of expertise to fly. Then we have ATI mode, which is the same as on the Phantom. It will let you fly without GPS. I have not tried this mode yet, but supposedly you use the slider for the lights switch and you can turn the GPS mode on or off, as well as dimming the lights. Then underneath we have the option to show more parameters. You can calibrate the RC sticks here if you are having issues, and then importantly the stick mode. You can see here that mine is set to mode 2, which is confusing because mode 2 is mode 1 and mode 1 is mode 2, but that's not a big deal. There doesn't seem to be a mode 3 or mode 4. There is a separate tab of battery voltage information and the number of cycles or charges of the battery, etc., which is nice. And if I select back there, I can also calibrate the gimbal from here as well. However, it doesn't seem to recalibrate the gimbal until you press back to the main screen, which is strange. And you can't recalibrate or adjust the fine-tuning of the gimbal in the air, which is a shame. Then we have the camera settings, which allows you to set between 1080p 60 or 30, as well as a 720p mode, and I can also have it record the audio as well, which is something different to the DJIs because they don't offer that feature. There is also various picture settings here too. For example, you can set the output to 16:9 or 4:3 when you take a photo. I can also format the micro SD card from here as well if I like. If I select back, then I can switch on a satellite map or deselect it, and it gives me the usual Google Map style diagram. Under that option is various account settings and flight logging. I guess the idea behind that being if you have a crash that is not your fault, then you can send it to Xiaomi and they can take a look at what happened. Good luck with that one. Now, I just want to show you some of the autonomous options that were locked out in the previous version of this aircraft. So if I go back to the main screen, you have to go back to the map view and then click this rather gender neutral looking icon in the middle, and this reveals a takeoff and land button as well as a return to home, orbit flight, drone flight, waypoint flight and tap to fly. So pretty much all of the things we come to expect when it comes to a drone these days. Anyway, that is enough talking. I have had enough. Let's go and do some flying. So this is some of the best footage that I managed to get with the Mi drone actually, but this was actually me just doing a quick test flight when I received it. I was a little bit under the weather and wasn't able to do a voiceover at the same time, which is a shame because I haven't had any decent weather since really. Now, one thing that I noticed with the Mi drone is that it does suffer keeping the horizon level with the gimbal, and that is true for a lot of these aerial photography platforms. You get it with the DJI models, and I don't think you notice it as much because there isn't so much fisheye effect on the DJI cameras these days. So with this one there is, and the moment that the gimbal starts going out of whack, you can really notice it because the edges of the horizon is curved. So I think that it definitely has an issue with keeping the horizon level, but does that make it a showstopper? Not really. I guess if you kept the quadcopter in the sort of same position for a while, the horizon would level out like it has done here. And then if I yaw quickly, you can see there, if I yaw all the way around, it goes out of whack. And it's quite slow to react until it levels out again. You can see it has done there. Now, I was quite impressed with the camera with this one. I didn't expect DJI quality, but I kind of got it. This is actually taken in 30 frames per second, this video, and there is a little bit of aliasing you can see. Now, when I reviewed the Mavic, I had a problem with aliasing when it came to the 60 frames per second mode, and this has it a little bit, but not as bad as the Mavic, I don't think. So again, I'm just sort of circling around. One thing that I did like about this one is because there is a wider field of view than DJI. When you point it to the ground, you get a lot in shot. So I did like that. And you can see here, I'm just messing around with the pitch on the gimbal, and you can see there that the horizon is out of whack. The horizon around here is not level actually, it does go at an angle there, so it's probably correct there. And yeah, I was quite impressed with how this camera worked in low light actually, because it was fairly low light. The sun has gone down here and it is frozen everywhere. And so I'm gaining some height now. And another thing that I found as well, even though the height is limited to 120 meters, which is fair enough, it did look like it was higher because you have a wider field of view, so you got more in shot. You can see again as I'm sort of yawing around there, the horizon not staying straight. And I do take it up to 120 meters in a moment, but I'm just yawing around here to show you the surroundings. One thing I did get from this flight was how stable the Mi drone was in the air. It literally wouldn't move, just like a DJI. So in that respect, I was really impressed with it. Just look how it's captured the horizon there. Like I say, it would level out and give some pretty impressive shots. Kind of looks like it's on a big crane, just like the DJI. Anyway, I'm deciding to see if I can get the full altitude out of this one. I've not quite reached it yet because I'm looking around. And yeah, I was pretty impressed by the view and also the FPV reception. Now, it says in the manual that you are only to expect 1 kilometer out of this, and probably more realistically about 300 meters, I would say. But I never fly further than 300 meters anyway, so that is fine for me. I tend to find that the Phantom 4 gets a little bit of breakup at around about the 500 meter mark as well, so you know, not too many complaints there. I love this shot, look at that, and the gimbal has leveled out nicely there. Now what I'm going to do in a minute is cut to a flight that I did where I shot in 60 frames per second and I was flying live and also in about 25 mile/hour winds, which was absolutely crazy, and that did upset the gimbal a lot more. I tended to find, I don't know if that was just in my head or what, but every time I flew this quadcopter I did calibrate the gimbal and it didn't seem to quite help. So you can see that I've not got the full height on there, but I'm going for it now, and it says max altitude reached, and it looks really nice through this camera. I really didn't expect it to come out so well with the light being so low. And this is a shot I really like. When you point downwards, you get a lot in shot despite it only being 120 meters in the air or 400 feet. I thought that it was a really pretty shot. Anyway, I am going to cut away from this shot now, and I'm going to go for a flight that was taken today in crazy winds. I probably shouldn't have flown it, and it doesn't really show the Mi drone in its best scenario, but it did cope with it and I was impressed with that. So let's go and take a look at that. So it's about a 20 mile/hour wind today, so not ideal conditions for testing the Mi drone, and for some reason it only wants to take off in that direction. Any other direction I try to take off, it tells me there's a compass error. Now I have calibrated the compass, so I have no idea what that is, but I guess it's not the biggest problem. Anyways, I've got the video recording. Let's see if I could take off in this crazy wind. Oh, it's so windy. Let's see if I could go out in the field. Oh, it's so windy. Let's see how it hovers though. It is getting blown about something crazy. Already I can see the gimbal is out of whack, and that is disappointing. Let's see if it levels out. So that's how it's hovering. And I have to say, in this wind, that is pretty impressive. Let's just turn it around and see how it handles it. Losing a bit of height. It looks like the gimbal's leveled out there, and that is the way that it took off. So let's see if I can go and fly down the field. Look at that. Let's get a bit of height on actually. Let's see how it performs there. It is really getting blown about. I probably should not be flying it. Let's go fly down the field, see what happens. Oh, it's making some funny noises as it adjusts for that wind. It looks like the gimbal is not level. I can see it adjusting constantly for that wind, and now I've turned around. The gimbal again is out of whack. Now this flies really nice. It is a shame about that gimbal not staying level, because the quality looks pretty good, and it does have its moments where it does go level. Like now it looks pretty level to me. Let's go up with some height, see what happens. I do think the fact that there is a fisheye effect on the camera does make the horizon look worse. Of course, the DJI, it also doesn't keep the horizon completely level, and the more fisheye, the worse that looks. But there is definitely a gimbal leveling problem with this model, I would say. Let's have a look around. You can see as I spin around there, look, the gimbal's gone right into the sky there. But if I look up at the quad is level. Oh, it is getting battered up there. The quality of the video on the phone looks great though. And the reception doesn't seem to be breaking up. That is nice. But I do not like flying it in these winds. Let's bring it down and let's see if I can get any of those auto features working. Specifically, I want to try the circle mode. It's not the best conditions for that today, but why not? Let's move the gimbal up. Look, it's nice and straight there. The horizon, maybe it's settled out a bit. Let's try and pirouette around and see what happens. Nah, it goes out of whack, look. And you cannot calibrate it in the air. Around about there it looks level. I can't even level it out because the wind is so crazy. Okay, let's walk out into the middle of the field a bit more. There's me. I need to be more in the middle to try some of these auto features. Oh, it's so cold. Righto. Do I have to stop the video? Maybe not. Let's go into settings. Will it let me? Well, let me go into settings. I have to go into the map view, I think. Let's try that. And then we have like this path thing that I can follow here. Orbit flight. That's what I'm after, I think. Orbit flight. Just say here, when setting orbit, please be aware of the altitude. Choose an open area. Okay. Please fly above the point of interest. Shall we have that point of interest be me? The thing is, so we don't have the... Oh, could I switch the camera view there? Camera view, is that... That's what I want. Oh my goodness. This thing is getting battered. I apologise, XIAOMI. Let's just do that, because it's just too intense for it, I think. Set point of interest. Now what's happening? Let's have a look here. Radius 5 meters, velocity. Yeah, I want it to go pretty slow. What happens if I move it? Do I need to move it back? That's what I have to do with the Phantom. And then start. What's going to happen? Uh-oh. Where's it going? That doesn't look right. What's it doing? Oh, do I need to turn it now? No? What's it doing? Orbit does not seem to orbit like a Phantom. There we go to the video. Where's it gone? Orbit just seems to fly around something but not actually catch it in the camera. So it's just flying in a circle here. And then you can alter the radius, so not really as useful as it is on the DJI, because of course that orbits you. And this is orbiting, wow, it's just circling around a certain point, sort of flying around it and not getting anything really interesting. Actually, the video looks pretty good. The horizon's looking pretty straight there. Okay. What happens if I press pause? They're going to give me them options again. No. Okay, terminate. And then that has come out of that mode. Let's see what else we've got. So I have to go into the map view to view them. The droney flight, maybe that's what I'm after. When setting droney, please be aware, same warning. Set droney flight. No, that's just gonna fly away from you. I don't like that with the trees that are around. I want to cancel that. So let's go back into the video view. So yeah, actually the automatic mode's not that useful to me. Probably need to play around with it a bit more when it's not blowing a gale, which that is what it's doing. It's freezing and the wind is crazy, and somehow it's managing to fly still. It is wandering a little bit, but I would expect any quadcopter to wander in weather like this. Battery, we're at 54%. I just want to show you those lights dimming if I can. Let's have a look at that. Because the lights are really quite bright. If I move the dial, you can see they don't completely turn off, but almost. And I can turn them back on. Really good for flying in general, so you can fly line of sight quite high up with this one, which is probably what I'm going to have to do today with this wind. Although the GPS seems to be behaving itself somewhat. Let's move the gimbal down a little bit. Where are we? I think that's probably as high as I should go, are we? Oh, it is getting blown around crazy up there. Oh, it's too much. Oh, the gimbal is out of whack, look. Where are we at there? That is 60 meters, and in this weather, I think that's about as high as I dare to go. You see, the gimbal does level out eventually, and you could probably use the footage there. It does look like it's slowly drifting away in the wind though, so let's bring it down. So I don't want this thing to fly away. Even with the best intentions of the GPS on board, it's really struggling in this weather. It's coming down very slowly. There we go. And now the gimbal is completely out of whack, but it may level off after a minute or so. Now, I don't know if it's me, but when I saw the original versions of these come out, the gimbal seemed rock solid. There you go, it seems to have leveled out now, but this one seems to be out slightly. Maybe it's the wind, I don't know, but I've had a couple of flights with this and the gimbal does not stay straight. Let's do a little bit of line of sight flying if I can. Yeah, the gimbal's got knocked out again. It's a fast thing, this, if you want it to be. Oh, it's got a great flight time, 15 minutes coming up on the video recorder. And the gimbal does seem to level itself off after a while, but I know it's pretty slow to do so. Yeah, it's gone level now. And that fisheye definitely doesn't help. I think if you put it into an editor and got rid of the barrel distortion, then it could be usable. But for me, they definitely need to improve this gimbal for it to compete with DJI. And the good thing about the modular design is that potentially they can do that, or maybe even update the firmware to whatever it was before, because I don't know, the first version seemed to have a more stable gimbal. Anyways, I think that's everything that I want to look at with this one today. Oh my goodness, that wind is crazy. I don't know if you can hear me. Let's see if I can find some short grass to land it in. Let's see if I could bring it down where it took off from. I'm not going to test the return to home. I'm not sure even I can return to home today. See if I can land it without getting it to tip over. I'm trying my best. Come on, please. And disarm. And stop video. 17-minute flight of 34% battery left. So there you go. That is my review of the XIAOMI Mi drone. It flies fantastic, but for me, the gimbal isn't quite there. It loses its angle in flight, and it probably just needs a firmware update or a way to manually calibrate the IMU on it, and then I think it would be great. I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.